Hello everyone, my name is Nilsor and welcome to my vault. Today on Fallout New Vegas 101 we are going to do an analysis of ED and Ulysses. The ED we meet in Lonesome Road is a copy of the one we previously encountered in the Mojave. It was constructed when the latter passed by on its journey and the Divide's computer picked up its signal to make a replica out of various scraps laying around, which included parts of the detonators that made the ICBMs explode. Therefore, all its memories are the one from the original ED, which came from Enclave's Adams Air Force Base on the East Coast and was sent to Navarro on the West Coast by its creator, Dr. Whitley, to avoid being dismantled. This is why the ED we meet has an exterior placarded with token from its travel, whereas this one is brand new. Although, despite having the same core origin, the two EDs differ in their behavior. Whereas the Mojave version is rather in control of its expressions and what we can identify as feelings, the Lonesome Road version is far more prompt to express its emotions. This is a take on the concept that these two EDs are different even if they are from the same module. For those of you who know this show, it is like the Cylons from Battlestar Galactica, all from the same mold, yet their experiences make them different from one another. This notion reflects quite nicely the theme of the DLC, illustrated by this phrase at the end, war never changes, but men do, through the road they walk. This notion that Lonesome Road ED is brand new can be seen in the way it interacts in a more childish manner by displaying more unchecked emotions. He also seems to be more prominently influenced by the TV show Ralphie that its maker used to make it watch. This idea of ED being a child seems supported by the fact that the courier witnessed its birth when it was activated, on the contrary of the Mojave version, which had been activated a long time ago by Dr. Whitley. It is also interesting to see that Mojave ED has lost this sort of childish innocence, but not long before arriving at the Mojave and getting shot, since Lonesome Road ED is a copy from just before it got there. This difference could be due to its hull damage or a development of what we can assume is its personality. If we take a more broad level of analysis, we can pinpoint an interesting opposition between ED and Ulysses. ED is ready to sacrifice itself to avoid the ICBM's launch, whereas Ulysses set it up and only sees destruction as a way of a new future. This opposition is furthered when comparing ED's warmer personality to Ulysses, who dismisses ED as just a machine, somewhat making the little robot the more human of the two. With a bit of a stretch, we can see an interesting conflict in the fact that ED was made by the Divide where Ulysses saw a community that could thrive and go beyond what any other groups could be. So the fact that Ulysses rejects ED even though it was made within the place he used to have hope for, could reflect Ulysses' own disillusions about the future. Lonesome Road ED connects with the courier in the same way than Mojave ED by having been through similar events. Lonesome Road ED carries parts of the detonator within itself, a device that could lead to immense destruction. This mirrors the courier, who also carried the detonator without knowing about it, nor the destruction that it could brought. Ulysses was born within the Twisted Hairs tribe who lived near dry wells in Arizona. In 2247, they formed an alliance with the New Caesar's Legion and were mainly used as scouts. Once the conquest of Arizona was over, the tribe, like many others, was absorbed within the Legion, their tribal identity erased, and resistance met with crucifixion. Traumatized by this event, it was then that the man we know as Ulysses took his name after having read an old book about Ulysses Grant, the US president who saw the end of the American Civil War. He chose this name because of the meaning behind it, a man who fought during a time of two flags and had to make them one. Thanks to his impressive skills, Ulysses quickly became an important frumentary, the Legion's spies. In 2274, he was sent to scout Nevada and was the first to see Hoover Dam. When he reported back to Caesar, he saw how that Old One monument turned into an obsession for the Legion's leader. In order to gain more information about the NCR, Ulysses was sent behind the enemy's line, closer to the Republic's territory, leading him to enter the Divide. There he found a tribe which made a lasting impression on him. He was impressed as he perceived that these people were starting to form a new nation with great potential in the future, shaped by the old world symbols around them, not trying to revive its meanings, but building something new from it. This impression made him think that they could become something greater than either the Republic or the Legion. Unfortunately, the NCR came and quickly annexed the small settlement, which it turns out was located on the two roads allowing to get around the mountains to the Mojave, the state routes 88 and 127. This draws the attention of Caesar, who sent small squads to attack the area, plunging the region into chaos. Meanwhile, the courier, by performing the job, helped the settlement to thrive. One day, the courier was carrying a package sent by the NCR from Navarro when they salvaged it from the former enclave base. The old world symbols on the device were similar to the ones from the Divide, which is why NCR officials thought they could find something there to understand its utility. The courier delivered it before leaving for the Mojave. This package actually contained an old remote control device for the ICBMs, which only needed to be in range of the launch computers to trigger, which it did. Numerous of the dormant ICBMs exploded, shaking the region in a terrifying earthquake, triggering the old meteorological device, giving birth to terrible dust storms. The survivalist settlement was blown apart. Ulysses was heavily injured, but medical iBots activated at the same time that the ICBMs saved his life. This event would become the second biggest trauma of his life. The road between the Mojave and the NCR were cut, making the Republic having to take the far longer I-15 to reach the New Vegas region, avoiding the dangers of the Divide as well as Big Mountain. This event happened sometimes before the First Battle of Hoover Dam in 2277, giving Caesar's legion a lucky advantage after the defeat, by delaying NCR's reinforcement from arriving. Ulysses came back to Caesar, who then sent him north to pursue Joshua Graham, who had survived his punishment. This led him to the Great Salt Lake region, where he met the White Lakes tribe, who wanted to join the Legion. Before they could be authorized to do so, they needed to prove their worth to Caesar. Ulysses trained them in the art of war and sent them to attack New Canaan, where Joshua took refuge. After the massacre, the tribe started braiding their hairs like Ulysses, who actually didn't appreciate this homage, feeling that the tribe wasn't understanding the meanings and messages behind the braids. Haunted by the ghosts of his former tribe, after seeing yet another one being destroyed, Ulysses left the White Lakes, breaking his ties with the Legion. He journeyed a bit through the wasteland, becoming along the way a bighorn rancher as well as a courier. At some point, he started pinpointing the origin of the Divide storm by following its irregular weather patterns, leading him to Big Empty. There, he rescued Christine Royce, who in exchange talked to him about the Brotherhood of Steel, Elijah, and this place. She also fixed Ulysses' holotape recorder as a thank you. When he encountered Elijah, he got the information about where he could meet the think tank, these remnants of the past, and set the Elder on the way to the Sierra Madre. The meeting with the think tank didn't go as planned, and just before they were about to capture and lobotomize him, Ulysses asked one question: "Who are you that do not know your history?" This triggered their memory bank and made them remember the America of old and what it used to mean. Hopeful things like freedom, prosperity, and happiness for all, things long lost in the wasteland, but an ideal that Ulysses started hoping to see flourish someday. They also revealed that the Divide still had something from that time within it, the ICBMs. The way to activate them was also still there. That's when Ulysses decided to reshape the post-apocalyptic world all on his own, much like the courier had done in the Divide. Stopping the progression of the dead ends that were the Legion and the NCR in order to allow for a new nation to emerge became Ulysses' goal. In 2281, Mr. House sent Victor to hire several couriers, including Ulysses, to carry the Platinum ship. When Ulysses saw the courier's name on the logbook in Prim, he let him or her have his place, hoping that the Mojave would prove deadly to the one who brought death to the Divide. He then departed for the Divide in search of the ICBMs and the way to activate them. Later this year, he sent out a message to the courier to come to him to finally exact retribution for what happened at the Divide and to destroy the NCR and Legion in the process. Physically, the most noticeable elements of Ulysses are his dreadlocks, gas mask, courier duster engraved with the Old World flag, and a US flagpole. This gives him an odd outlook of carrying history literally on his back, but also through the remnants of his tribe's way of displaying memories through breads. Even his name is carrying meanings taken from history, both from Ulysses Grant, the president uniting two flags, but also from Ulysses of ancient Greece in the sense of being a traveler. But Ulysses, on the contrary of what you might perceive at first glance, is not someone who stays stuck on the past, given how much time he spent thinking about the future and how the wasteland should evolve, not wishing to go back to old ways but to new ones that are better. He rather shows a reverence to the old world and understands the tragedy of lost history, particularly since he saw both tribes he cared about being annihilated and forgotten. This can be seen when, after the White Legs destroyed New Canaan, Ulysses was regretful for destroying the Mormon settlement along with all the ancient history of its people. This developed Ulysses' interest for symbols. He is spending a lot of time thinking about how they influence people, how people influence them, the power of symbols through the message they carry, and how some symbols have or should not have a place in the present. This capability to analyze on a meta level is something deeply rooted in his personality. He has a propensity to project and plan how things will evolve and see their limits, like how the NCR expansion will be its doom, how the Legion will turn on itself when they no longer have enemies, or how Mr. House is obsessing about how things used to be instead on how things are. His analytical tendencies are combined with a rational approach. Ulysses displays very few emotions, better hidden behind his gas mask, and processes situations and informations through the scope of logic and reason. This makes him feel the need to search for informations about what he wants to think about before making what he perceives to be an enlightened judgment about the situation. This is why Ulysses traveled so much and explored the wasteland, met a lot of different people and culture, gathered knowledge about them, and learned about how things used to be. This was during that time that he started to value the ideals of America, such as being part of a great nation, giving hope and a bright future for its citizens. He does not want to restore America per se, otherwise he would have probably looked out for the Enclave, but to bring back those values while avoiding making the same mistakes that brought the Great War. That is why that tribe in the Divide, who he perceived could be such a great nation, growing under the Old World flag, had such an impact on him. But this capability to learn and analyze things is not without bringing inner conflict. Regarding the Legion, Ulysses has seen the worst, like the betrayal and absorption of his former tribe, but also the good of it with some stability brought into the wasteland and the united front that was created compared to the backstabbing NCR. But he also perceives its limits and how it will crumble once they've dealt with their enemies and when Caesar will die. His inner conflicts are also fueled by his sense of loyalty, whether it is toward his tribe, the Legion, or a tribe that would be worthy, always taking an oath toward their flag and symbol. This sense of loyalty can be seen when he doesn't just kill the courier when he has a chance, due to a promise he made to Caesar that he, a courier, will never attack another courier. So to enact vengeance, Ulysses needed to find an indirect way. That is, until he finally confronts the courier and might start a fight. This change could come from the fact that, since Ulysses is someone who is very logical and rational, his dealing with emotions are not up to par. If you pay attention, Ulysses very rarely uses an emotional language, and always avoid incorporating into his worldview more personal elements like his relationships. In the case of the courier, he might even be incapable of admitting the hate that he feels, camouflaging it behind a logical and more intellectualized explanation that he hates what the courier had shown him through the destruction of the Divide, avoiding to make it a more personal matter. But unfortunately for him, he remains a human being with the emotional package that it includes. A mix of having been betrayed, hurt, along with a sense of loyalty, paired with a highly critical and analytical mind, has also spurred some trust issues. Ulysses will no longer simply follow someone or something without being absolutely certain that it will be for the best. This is why he doesn't trust the courier to shape the wasteland in the right way, his way, and won't let history being marked by someone he didn't deem worthy. Although his need to know as much as possible allows him to remain open to hear what the courier has to say, enough that he can be convinced to change his stance, and that the courier actually might be able to breathe life into a new, worthy nation like it was the case at the Divide. On a more meta level, the Lonesome Road can be seen as Ulysses' road. For a long time, he was a lonely traveler, walking on many roads as a scout, as a scholar, as a courier, but also as an instrument of doom and rebirth. But this journey led Ulysses to be a very lonely person, connecting now only to the ideals of America, not a faction nor people in particular. We can perceive this loneliness in how he's taunting you for having a companion and nonetheless a robot one. This might come from the fact that Ulysses' entire plan could also have an emotional origin, one that he is most likely blind to or suppressing, the desire to not be alone anymore by finding a real new home. After all, the message that can be seen at the start of the DLC is one that Ulysses wrote for himself: "You can go home again, courier." This is maybe why, despite all his capabilities, which are being biased by his lack of consideration for his emotions, Ulysses fails to perceive that launching ICBMs into the wasteland to wipe the slate clean is actually repeating another mistake that was already done in the past during the Great War. Erasing nation has not led to a great new nation as we can witness today. Which is why ultimately the courier can convince him to back down by telling Ulysses that symbols should not be destroyed, but changed, which is going to be harder to do than to launch nuclear warheads, but might in the future lead to this great new hopeful nation that Ulysses is wishing for. To conclude, Ulysses could have been another player character. He has been in a lot of places, has a lot of capabilities on his own, and has changed the destiny of several characters and tribes. When you finally meet him, he doesn't need you to carry on and will confront you if you get in the way, or will be convinced to follow you, much like you decide to go for the Legion, NCR, House, or Independence path. In the end, Ulysses is the protagonist of his own adventure, or rather, in a more fitting choice of word in this case, his own odyssey. That is it for now for the Fallout New Vegas 101 series. Next Fallout-centric videos are going to be in an all-new show where I'll be analyzing different themes and subjects dealt with in Fallout. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.